Dewana, wave at the people. I can no longer see you, but wave at the people. And I'm going to be introducing Dewana Howard in a little bit because she is one of the other co-hosts of Real Talk, the show that we're talking about today in this program. Okay, let's see, slideshow. Here we go. Yes. All right. Well, here we are at Peer Apocalypse. This is my 4th year presenting here, and I presented 4 workshops this year alone. All right. Let's see. So let's see what this Real Talk is about. Real Talk was started in the aftermath of the George Floyd murder and is an event series highlighting topics pertaining to the Black, Indigenous, people of color, or BIPOC communities. The Black Lives Matter movement, systemic racism, social justice, and mental health. So we talk about all of these things, and there's a great deal of gravity that comes with all of this. So we try to do so in the best light. And we always begin our meetings, as some of you may have begun to do, by making what is known as a land acknowledgement. So here is how we start our meetings. It says, for thousands of years, the place now called the Bay Area has been the home of the Ohlone, Miwok, Kashia, Pomo, Mishawel, Wapo, Amamutsan, and Patwins tribes and bands. We acknowledge that for 10,000 years, people lived in harmony on these lands. I ask you now to join me in acknowledging their people, acknowledging their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. Most of the institutions for which we work must also acknowledge that they were founded upon exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to begin the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. How's that? Now that's real talk, right? Yes, so we have to acknowledge our ancestors, those that came before us, whose land we now occupy, and whose cultures and everything else has been appropriated, dismantled, however that came to be. So here, my nerdy picture, there I am. Kenneth Kozi, Arrington. I am the programs outreach coordinator for PEERS, which stands for Peers Envisioning and Engaging in Recovery Services. And we are in Oakland, California, Alameda County. In my role, I reach out to Alameda communities and counties and agencies that serve people with mental health challenges. I am the co-founder and the lead chairperson for the Alameda County Pool of Consumer Champions, or POCC, Sexuality and Gender Alliance Committee, also known as SAGA. And I presented an LGBT workshop, I believe, on Tuesday of this week. And I'm also it says a founder and co-host of Real Talk. Yeah, and this is what happened. Right after the George Floyd murder, I received an email or a phone call, and someone said, well, we're doing this talk show. Would you consider coming on as a guest speaker? And I said yes. And I have been there as a co-host ever since. That's how things kind of happened. You know, it kind of fell into my lap, and I'm still with it, going with it, because it is so vital and so very important, especially to me as a person of color. All right, so we talk about some of everything in Real Talk. We talk about the good, the bad, the happy, sad. We talk about the madness. We talk about disparities. We talk about racism, sexism, classism, ableism, anti-Semitism, ageism, heterosexism, communism, fascism, capitalism, socialism, all of the isms. There are so many more isms, a lot of which I have not met. And I want to take this opportunity to right now encourage you and invite you to use this chat feature on here, since there are so many of you in the room. And the wonderful thing about this chat is that we don't have to speak one at a time. I don't have to wait for one person to speak before engaging another. You can all be writing as we're going along, and I will quite frequently refer to that chat so that all of your words, your questions, your comments, your concerns are voiced and heard. So please do that. Have I missed out any isms? You might want to write some of those. These isms that encompass and they deny, they appropriate, they demonize, demoralize, and victimize the rights of men, women, children, ethnic minorities, people of color, gays, the old, the religious, and they dismantle and with the denial of all human rights. That's what all of this, all of the isms do. And we haven't even mentioned the phobias. So that's just, yeah. What kind of phobias are there that exist in your communities? Okay, you might want to put some of that in the chat. Yes, indeed. And we also talk about the mental health and the intersectionality of all of those things I just mentioned, and the isms, the intersectionality, all of that stimulates the experience of oppression, you know, including but not limited to those things that I have just mentioned. And together, they compose a unified system of oppression. Unified system of oppression. And here you see this quote by Audre Lorde. It says, "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives." Yes, Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde was a writer, a feminist, a womanist, a librarian, and a civil rights activist. She was a self-described Black lesbian, mother, warrior, poet who dedicated her life and her work to confronting and addressing injustices of racism, sexism, classism, so and so on. Yeah, so that, and especially homophobia, since she is a lesbian woman. So that's a little bit about the woman behind that quote. Yes? All right. So I'm going to, if you can, Dewana, can you unmute yourself and say a few words? Like I said, Dewana is the other co-host of the show. I see she's in our audience today.
Yes,
Would you
I
care?
am.
Okay, would you please care to say something? I can no longer see you.
Right,
So,
right.
okay.
Yes, I will say something. So, hello, all. Yeah, it's a big crowd in here today. Thank you for coming out this morning to support Kozi in this presentation. But yes, like he said, I am one of the other co-hosts on the Real Talk event that happens every other Friday. I work for the Mental Health Association of San Francisco. I've been with them since 2016. I started off as a warm line counselor. Um, and then I was there. I was a warm line counselor for about 2.5 years, and I transitioned to being a peer counselor. That's what I am now. And yeah, and we do this thing, this real talk every other Friday. And like Cozy, you said, we talk about everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there we go. So
Yes, we do.
yes, we
And
do.
Dewana, I remember that very first session that you all invited me to after the George Floyd incident, and
Mhm.
which was really very highly emotional, if you recall that.
Oh
And
yes.
as guest speakers, we always have guest speakers. And as guest speakers on that day, we actually had a person who had just been released from incarceration recently, fairly recently. I have the privilege of working with his daughter on my job. And this person's name is Damon Suja Johnson. And more importantly, not more importantly, but equally as important, do you remember who our other guest speaker was that day? It
Yeah.
was Oscar Grant Sr. Now, I'm not sure how many of you around the country or wherever you are ever heard of Oscar Grant Jr. Well, Oscar Grant Jr., the third, was a 22-year-old African-American man who was killed early in the morning hours of New Year's Day in 2009 by a BART police officer. Public transport, BART, that's what we call it here. A police officer named James Mesery in Oakland, California, which sparked off a whole lot of more social unrest, the same thing. And I mentioned that to say that this was in 2009, and just look if we can even count how many other such incidents have occurred since then. We find ourselves in the same positions over and over and over again. Yeah, so after that, we talked about racism and incarceration. And we also had guest speakers that day, the gentleman that I just mentioned, Damon Suja, who is the leader of Black Men Speak, right, which is a group of Black Men Speak is an inspirational speakers bureau founded in 2009 through the Alameda County Pool of Consumer Champions once again. And 3 years later in 2012, the Men of Color Speakers Bureau was established, expanding outreach in our community. I'm kind of wondering, wherever you are, do you have such organizations for people of color in your communities? Good question. You might want to write stuff in the chat. If you do not, do you think you might consider trying to implement something like that, or in your programmings, having something like this as a regular part of your programming? Maybe establishing a talk show like this. We do this bi-monthly, right, Joanna? Every 2 weeks or so. Yes,
Yeah,
right?
every 2 weeks.
So I'm asking the question, and I'm putting it out there, that if in fact any of this strikes you and you say, oh, wow, we can do this, we need to do something like this where we live, then please do let that seed sink in and hopefully water it and let it grow. Let it grow, make it grow. So we talked about racism and incarceration and the large disparities in the number of people of color who are actually incarcerated compared to what percentage they make up of the actual population. So for instance, for a place where the percentage of African Americans in the population is 20%. However, when you look at the number or the percentage of people who are incarcerated in that same city, county, state, or whatever, and it's upwards of 50 or 60%, you can see the disparity there. You can see that something is very, very wrong with this system of incarcerating people of color at a much higher rate and for much longer periods of time than those of other ethnic makeups, right? Joanna, you let me know anytime you might want to say something, just raise your hand and so I can see you. I do see you on my screen now, okay? So yeah, racism and incarceration. It's really hard to talk about all this stuff knowing that it is all founded and based in some sort of trauma, pain, oppression. So how do you continually have a conversation when the basis of it are these things? Well, the thing is, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it and be about it. And that's the only way we can effectively make change, is to make some noise and stand up and be counted, right? That goes for people of. Now we're dealing with the anti-Asian sentiment, standing up, saying, no, we can't do this, we're not standing. The Black Lives Movement, the LGBT movement, all of anybody who has been systemically oppressed and denied and tried to be erased and demonized, demoralized, any of all of that, This is the kind of stuff we talk about, and which brings us to like substance use. Okay, substance use is bad everywhere, but I would think that in our African American communities and other communities of color and certain demographics, and depending on where you live, that substance use is off the hook, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And then how, once again, how people of color who may be arrested for some sort of substance use or possession will receive a much longer sentence than someone else may receive, thus the erasure from the community. And what that does to the community, substances, they destroy communities to begin with. You know, so you add that what it's doing to the community, you add the people being taken off the streets, mostly a lot of men who are no longer there to support their families, how the children are affected, how everything is affected, how the cycle of poverty is perpetuated. And yeah, substance use is one of the primary factors in the decline of many communities, including the BIPOC community. Substance use. So we talked about that. Here we are. We talked about suicide awareness and the BIPOC community. Remember this one, Dewana, and
Oh
Dr.
yeah.
Donna Burns?
Yeah.
I believe she shared in her personal experience of around suicide. Was it not her son or something?
Yep, it was her son. Yeah,
Right,
it was her
right.
son.
Yes, and she is, I think, on the staff or was once on the staff of Howard University. Dr. Donna Barnes, that was very poignant. Yeah, a lot of big feelings around all of these subjects. Okay, with this, hopefully you all have been chatting in the chat box, and I would like to ask my tech support person to let us in on what's in the chat so far so that we don't get bogged down and cannot catch up.
So,
Absolutely. Thank you, Kozi. Oh yeah, Dewana
yeah,
has
yeah, I
her.
got I do have my hand raised. So, I know
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
said that, I said that I work for the Warm Line at the Mental Health Association when I started. I'm like, it's a bunch of people that's not from Oakland, all right, they're from the Bay Area.
Right,
They don't
right.
know what the Warm Line is. So let me explain real quick. So the Warm
Very
Line is
good.
a emotional support line where people can call, and it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. And you could call and talk about anything. You can call in this, and it's not a suicide hotline or anything like that. But if it is somebody that came on there that was having suicidal thoughts or whatever, we would transfer them to the suicide hotline. But it's emotional support line that you could just call and talk about whatever. And they also got right now since COVID, they got the Cal Hope line also too, along with the Warm line. So that's another line that you could call also. I'll try to get the number, but if anybody wants it, or put it up in the chat so y'all can have it. But yeah, I wanted to explain. I'm like, these people's not from the Bay Area, so let me
Right.
tell them what we do. Anyway, that's it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so the question now becomes, do you have warm lines in your area? Put it in the chat. Let us know. Thank you, Dewana,
You're welcome.
for that clarification. And now to you, Katie.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just been kind of keeping track of some longer points, but people have been sharing in the chat the organizations in their communities that support BIPOC folks. So thank you so much for that. I just wanted to read two chat comments. So Dorothy shared, another ism is ableism. It is discrimination and social prejudice against people with disabilities and/or people who are perceived to be disabled. Ableism characterizes people who are defined by their disabilities as inferior to the non-disabled. So thank you so much for sharing that, Dorothy.
Yes.
And then also Lillian, Lillian shared, I've been feeling the siloed aspect of peer delivered services, being certified as adult mental health / family support / youth support, substance use, when so many of us have many of those experiences. So thank you everyone for sharing, and I'll keep track of your comments.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Yes. So,
Kozi, we just had
yeah.
a real talk about disabilities. Was that wasn't last week? That was like the week before. We had a whole real talk segment about disability awareness and, what people perceive as a disability. Yeah, we had a whole talk about that.
Yeah, I do believe there's a slide for that coming up.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So this Suicide Awareness Week, that was a really difficult week for me because I am one of those people who have had suicidal ideation and maybe continue to sometimes. And then just recently or last week, I completed, what is it? The Alternatives to Suicide training. In case any of you are interested in doing that, the Alternatives to Suicide training, and it is hosted by the Wildflower Alliance, which is in Massachusetts. So you might want to Google that, Wildflower Alliance, Massachusetts. And they had this 6-day, 4 hours a day training called Alternatives to Suicide. But yeah, suicide in the Black BIPOC community is rising. People, especially since this pandemic, people who have already so much less to begin with have now so much more less to deal with, especially when it comes to housing and access to services, all of that sort of thing. All of these things are entangled with one another, and they continue to wreak havoc in all communities, and especially in the Black, Indigenous, people of color communities. Remember this one? We talked about women, powerful women of color. That was an awesome um, session. We had some very great guest speakers that day. I don't remember any of them by name right now, but that was powerful. Do you remember this one? I remember you were very enthusiastic about this one.
Yes, I do remember that, and I believe that I talked about who was it? Who was the person? I can't even remember right now. So, well, if it comes to me, I'll put it up there. I forgot who it was, but yeah, this was an awesome one too, right here. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes. So we try to honor the diversity of everybody and everything as we go through these uh, sessions every 2 weeks. I really liked that one. That who did I talk about? Um, wow.
Right, right. That's where I'm at
Uh,
too.
yeah,
Right.
Maya Angelou, or
No,
different.
no,
All
I
these
no,
wonderful.
it was me. It
Was
was
that
me
was
with my
you?
yep, that was me with my Angelo. Thank you, Kozi. Yeah, right.
Yes. Oh, I know. I did Harriet Tubman, and then
Right,
the woman that played her most recently, Cynthia um, Vera or Yerbo, whatever.
right,
I
right,
can't think of my. I'm slaughtering these people's names. Please
right.
forgive me. All right. Then we went on, and then we talked about it. Must have been around Thanksgiving, November, and we talked about celebrating American holidays. Now, that means a lot for different people. It certainly doesn't mean the same for this African American family as it does for these folks, does it? Absolutely not, right? So we talked about how celebrating holidays in the African American communities may be really different from other cultures and communities, and for the reasons behind it. Um, yes, I know in the African American community, just as everywhere, it's a time for families to come together and all of those things. But it's what are they celebrating? What are they really celebrating? What's at the root of that celebration? It's very, very different depending on who you are, where you are, your socioeconomic background, all of those variables, yes? So we had a number of really interesting guests and people in our audience speak up about this during our sessions. How do you think celebrating African American holidays is the question for you now is different from other cultures, white people or people of Asian descent or African people, or how do you think celebrating these American holidays can differ and vary? And why do you think that is? Let's ask our Native Americans, shall we? I bet you they would have a whole nother story to tell. We know their narrative, right? So we did have these very wonderful guest speakers on uh, this day, and it was just wonderful to hear from another perspective and in their own words and from the depths of their own emotions and souls, what it was like to be them, what their memories are. And remember, we spoke about the land acknowledgement and all of the erasures and all of that. All of that came up during this meeting, and it was very enlightening, very, very enlightening. Yes, it was.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. Um, we talked about mindfulness and healing. This was a favorite. This was a really good one because so much of what we talk about has such gravity to it that, you know, every now and then we want to bring something that's lighter and that will leave us not feeling as down or as depressed or as whatever in those feelings as some of the subject matters have a way of doing. So I remember this one, Arisika Razak from the East Bay Meditation Center. I remember her leading us through this wonderful guided meditation. Do you remember that?
Oh, oh, yes, I do. I told her she almost put me to sleep. I almost,
Right.
right, right, right. Yeah. Yeah, it was beautiful though. It was beautiful.
Yep,
Absolutely beautiful.
yes,
Yeah.
that was. So these are the kinds of things we're talking about. Do you have mindfulness and healing type workshops where you are in your communities? Let us know what's going on with you, your thoughts in the chat. Fill up that chat because there are a lot of you in here, and I know a lot of you have a lot to say. And so hopefully by the end of this, we'll have time to take questions and answers and to allow you all to talk even amongst yourselves about what's being shared. Yes, indeed. Here's another big one, housing and the BIPOC community. Um, it is mind-blowing to me the rate at which gentrification is taking hold here in Oakland, California, where I live. You know, the place where I was raised and can no longer even hardly recognize because of what has happened to our neighborhoods, what has happened to our historic areas that have now been basically, once again, we're coming to that erasure kind of thing happening, and people being displaced. The land values or the property values or the prices have gone up so high that people can no longer afford to live where they have lived their entire lives and are being forced out into other areas. Um, it's just astounding when I go out and I can't feel safe or recognize and realize, wow, this is my old neighborhood. And now I'm being looked at as an outsider in my own in my own neighborhood is crazy. So we talk about housing in the BIPOC community and how much homelessness there is here in the Bay Area. I don't know what it's like where you are, but it is a mess. It's a mess here. You can hardly go anywhere without seeing a homeless encampment. And let me tell you, folks, it just breaks my heart to have to pass by block after block, hundreds of people, and see how they have been left to fend for themselves and live on the streets. My heart breaks, like I said, but you know, I'm only one person and I can only maybe help one person at a time, maybe even if it's a panhandler and I'm in the car stopping at a light, you know, I'm like, it's only $1. It's only $1. You know, it's not up to me to question what they're going to spend that dollar on, if it's going to be on drugs or something to eat or whatever, especially when I am going home to so much compared to what I think of as so little, you know, and to be on the streets, that's probably my worst fear I don't think I could do it. You know, so housing here in the BIPOC community is a real big issue because people are no longer to afford to live here, you know.
Yeah, it's so cozy. If I could say something a little bit, one of our guests on there was a very good friend of mine that I've been knowing for a long time, and she works on the front line out here in Oakland, California. And when I say the front line of the homelessness, it's going into the encampments that we see on a daily
Mm.
basis on the streets and whatever to try to provide some services to whoever needs them, whatever those services look like. So she was one of our guests on this Real Talk in particular. Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Okay, is anything in the chat?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will share 2 comments first and then go to some questions. I wanted to share Christina's comment. This feels like you're telling my story, and I keep trying to reiterate to my kids to not be a statistic for these people. My grandson has experienced racism by his principal, who told him he needed to learn some integrity at 9 years old. He then later talked about committing suicide. I work for mental health in Yamhill County, and let's just tell you, I gave them something to talk about. I'm a strong Indigenous woman of Blackfoot experience. And then Lillian shared, houselessness in Portland is at extreme rates. My neighbor has campers who are in the community with each other and creating a sense of home until the city sweeps them out, because gentrification in the area and people who didn't grow up here don't realize they're the interlopers and not the houseless folks. Let's see. And then Willie just shared, let's see, if you notice, included in one's racial identity, there are different or separate higher powers. All of our cultures have a God or a spirit belief that is passed down throughout generations. This affects our holiday celebrations in addition to our worship. So celebration is always going to be different from each other. And then the questions, let's see. Lillian asked, do you ever get into the idea of internalized racism as promoted by colonialism and the breaking apart of families? And then Karen asked to expand on microaggressions.
Microaggression, I don't remember mentioning that word, but well, microaggression, what does that mean? I would, is you know what micromanagement is, right? Where it's constant, it's there, it's over your shoulder, it's in your face. The same with microaggression. You know, it's somewhat subtle, but not really. You know, it's insulting actually to think that, oh, you think that I don't really understand what you're saying to me right now, or I'm recognizing the tone of your voice or the meaning behind the words that you're using. Really? Microaggression. Just what do other people's think of the word microaggression in the context of which we're speaking? Does anyone want to raise their hand and answer this question? Here's one of the few times we'll have someone raise their hand and address it. Who would like? Okay, it looks like Lillian. Hey, Lillian.
I'm going to try this, but my sound has not been working out recently.
Okay.
My understanding, which hasn't been very clear on microaggression, is basically people who don't necessarily even recognize their own internal motives and biases and how they approach others. And that comes through, like you were saying, in tones of voice, eye expressions, facial expressions, body language, and that people who have experienced the aggressions and the microaggressions and the isms inherently recognize it and feel it in their bodies and experience it in their brains.
Thank you. Lillian. Anyone else care to comment? Either that
Well,
or did anyone? Yes, who am I hearing?
Willie.
Oh, hey, Willie.
Oh, just something brief in thought here. Microaggression, it is intentional, and in some cases, it perpetuates anger or some other form of disrespect to another individual. So it's done on purpose.
Mhm.
That's it.
Thank you, Willie. Absolutely. Did anyone write anything in the chat about this question, in answer to this question?
David Bliss shared indirect, subtle discrimination. So thank you for that.
Yes. Thanks. So you get the idea, right? Let's see. Probably the next week. I'm not sure if these are in chronological order. And really, now my clicker says I'm not going to work for you anymore. Really, seriously, what happened? Okay. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Here we go. Okay, yeah. There we go. Once again, one of our lighter subject days about creativity and the arts in the BIPOC community. Our guest speakers on this day were artists and people who are professionals who use creativity and art as healing therapies. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Do you remember this one, Dewana? Remember Ebony from the Healing Well in San Francisco?
Yes,
And she
indeed.
spoke of how she came to do the work she is doing because of her health challenges. Do you want to say more about this one?
Yes, this guest right here that we had was exceptional. I mean, all of our guests are good, but
Or no?
this one right here and what she was doing, what she's doing in San Francisco, was just absolutely astounding to me. And so she said that, they had before COVID, they got a place where, people can come. And if anybody knows anything about San Francisco, like it's, we talk about homeless and addicts and substance use all over downtown San
Downtown.
Francisco. So yeah, so that's where their clinic was at. And so she said people just come in there and they would do art, get them to, she said it'd be a place where they could just chill out for a minute, just take a break, and they would introduce art. And art is therapy, for people. And so yeah, she said that's what they were doing. And in COVID, I forgot how she said they were doing it, but they were still doing it to, make sure that people were still being served and people still had, something to do. It's a lot of addicts out there in San Francisco on the street. So yes, Ebony, exceptional.
Right.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Yep.
especially when so many other things were closing down. The clinics were closing down.
Mhm.
All of the things that they might have had access to before COVID that were serving the underserved began to close down as well. And so they were left with very few or very little resources. But this was a place where they were actually able to go and, just like the title, get some healing and some therapy through the artwork. Many of them for the first time, but a lot of them who have continued on to do that, and as a way of therapy, help keep them from using less. If you have something else you can do, perhaps you might not do this. But we heard some really wonderful stories of success coming out of this healing well in San Francisco. As always, mental health um, is a big thing in the African American communities or in the BIPOC communities. Mental health sometimes can be like the big elephant in the room, right? Not only is it a big elephant in the room, but it's a pink elephant with purple polka dots. Or wait a minute, maybe it's a purple elephant with pink polka dots, but it's an elephant nonetheless, right? It's there. And for the longest time, people, especially in some communities, we say we don't want to talk about mental health. They say, well, I've heard it said that, oh, that's something that white folks have, mental health problems. I'm like, really. And they will just say like things like, take it to Jesus, right? What other things have you heard in the African American community when it comes to people not wanting to address and be in denial about having mental health? If you know of or have heard of any of that stuff, put it in the chat. What's it like in your areas when it comes to mental health and conversations around that in the community? Duana, do you want to say anything about this
Um, about this particular I'm sorry, talk that we did with Juan. Juan is absolutely wonderful. I work with Juan. He used to work on the one line. He was a counselor there too, but Juan was great. And yes, and so our next talk, matter of fact, on Friday, we're getting ready to talk about the challenges and what else did we say yesterday? And something else about mental health in the BIPOC community.
one? Yeah, it's
And
coming up. There's a
yep,
slide.
yeah, okay, yeah. So there
I
there
have
we
a
go. But
slide.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been a struggle for real. My family for sure. We don't talk about stuff like that at all.
Right.
It is right, like Kozi said. Take it to Jesus. Pray about it. Right.
Yeah,
God is
right.
real, but I need some help. You hear me? So
Mm,
right.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we did talk about, what mental health is like in the for different cultures and people of color communities, Latino communities, API communities, and we had this young person here, Juan Acosta, who is an LGBTQ youth advocate, come on and talk about mental health and what it was like for him as a young person on the LGBTQ spectrum to deal with mental health and what exacerbates his mental health and how he advocates for others like himself in his demographic to rise above and beyond, to get the help they need, to show them where they can go for help, and to be a source of strength and a role model for people like him. I believe his pronouns were he, him. I don't want to misgender anyone in that way. Yeah, so mental health advocacy in the BIPOC community is a big thing, a really big thing. Okay, well, we made it to Black History Month. Yeah, I remember not knowing in which direction to go because there's so much. How do we talk about Black History Month in a 90 minutes session? Which is how long Real Talk lasts, from 5 to 6:30. So we had a number of people in our virtual audience that day that came on and they spoke about not only Black history in the past, but Black history in the making and the trajectories of where we see some of our Black history going and how that will soon, tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that become historic moments in our Black history. Uh, yeah, Black History Month, wow. And so here are probably here are some of the people who were mentioned in that discussion. Fred Hampton there, our late beloved Chadwick Boseman, who left us about 3 months ago. And of course, John Lewis, who was there in the civil rights movement and has been a figurehead ever since. So here are some of the people that we spoke up and about and who inspired us to work for social justice as we go forward. Do you have such people that you and who have inspired you? That's a good question. Who inspires you to work for justice? Put it in the chat and we will revisit all of that. Who inspires you to work for justice? What happened to inspire you to work for justice? Why do you work for social justice? Any and all of those. Let's get some answers to those. Because truly, without us people who have, for whatever reason, chosen to do this work, the work would not be getting done. So it is a movement. It is a nonpartisan movement. It is not a color thing. It's not anything but a human thing. If we can just get over the differences and because of the color of our skin or where we are from geographically or what God we might want to serve or any and all of that, whom we may choose to love. You know, what inspires you to work for justice of all kinds? Chat box. And here, Dewana, is the slide that you referred to earlier when we talked about people with disability and disability awareness, the justice and skills, you know, and how we do understand that not everyone is the same, and how we should really avoid making assumptions about a person based on what we think we see, our perceived visions, and to really dig deeper so that we can gain a better understanding of what it is like to have a disability, whether that's a disability that people can see or recognize, because a lot of disabilities, they are invisible. People do not necessarily know that one is disabled simply by their appearance, right? So we did talk a great deal about disability awareness, and all of our guest speakers that day were people who had a disability of one sort of another, some of which were obvious and others which were invisible. But we needed to have those people that we could not really recognize as having a disability visually to open up and let us know and let us understand what it is like for them to experience a disability that may not be obvious to folks and how they are discriminated against once disclosing that or once it's found out about. Yeah, difficult. I was considering myself disabled at one time because of my mental health challenges. But I do stand here as proof positive to demonstrate and say that recovery from mental health challenges is possible. It is real, and I stand here as a representative of just that. And so to answer my own question about what inspires me to work for justice or who, I am at my best inspiration right now because I have come from so far. I've been on the precipice. I've been at the doors of death. I have knocked. I have, you know, I've done so much, the suicidal stuff, all of this stuff, only to realize that I am only to a point as disabled as I allowed myself to be, because I was in a jail, a self-constructed mind jail, which told me that I couldn't, and I wouldn't, and I shouldn't, and I can't, and I won't. And I was like, once I put down the DOC, drug of choice, and my mind kind of cleared. I was like, to hell with that. You're in Arrington, damn it. You're not going out like that. Don't go out like that. Stand up for something so you don't continue to fall for everything. Be a leader, not a follower. You know, to hell with everybody else. And, you know, just do you. And, you know, if it means that you lose people out of your life, well, they probably were not there, the best influences in my life to begin with anyway. So see it. Bye, Felicia. That's an old saying from a movie in case you guys don't get the reference. But yeah, so I was actually disabling myself because of low self-esteem, you know, so many things. My lack of what I perceived of accomplishment. Well, I said, well, you're so this age now, you should be here. You thought you were going to have this or will have accomplished that. Well, life has a way of teaching you. At least it taught me. How about you? You know, disability awareness. Are they real? Of course they are. Are they perceived? Of course they are. Are they sometimes illusions? Yes, they are. And what do we do about any and all of these justices or injustices when it comes to disability awareness? Yes. Oh,
Uh,
yes.
oh,
Someone.
Kozi. Yeah,
Yeah,
I just wanted to share some things that were in the chat before we get
please
too
do.
far. All right, so let's see, some things that inspire people. Lillian shared my children and grandchildren. Carmody shared my kids. Barbara shared all of the heroes I work with at a peer support center. Melissa shared one of my reasons is my husband's 9-year and 32-hour fight against immigration.
Mm.
Christina shared, my father took me to my first protest when I was 13 to free a native Mexican gentleman from prison for something he did not do. I took my son to his first protest when he was 12 to fight racism and violence. And then let's see, Tristan shared the thousands and thousands of false convictions in the Black community. Inspires me to fight for justice. The Innocence Project mission to free these innocent people who have spent so many years behind bars would be a dream to be part of. And then some people shared just about, 32,000 is what you meant. Sorry, Melissa. Let's see. And then in terms of sharing about, culture and mental health and the ways that people's mental health is or is not seen. Troy shared, my partner is Native Hawaiian and their family blames mainland water for not only their mental health, but also their queerness and poly family. Melissa shared, in the Hispanic community, it's not talked about either of instance depression as being lazy, anxiety, just calm down, hearing voices, pray about it. Let's see. I've noticed that Willie shared, I've noticed that some Black people make comments such as he or she'll be all right. Don't worry, just love them. Don't let their condition bother you. Sometimes families are concerned that they are taking their medication. And then let's see. Oh, Lillian shared holding invisible physical and mental health or other abilities has meant at various times being labeled a faker, a whiner, not wanting to receive help by others who don't understand. And then the last one that I'll share right now is Art shared. As an Indigenous single father, I teach my son, you wake to Mother Earth and Father Sky. Your travels are guided by both. Before you leave, light sage and smudge yourself so as to protect yourself from bad vibes. Speak of what you want to learn today from others you have come by. We talk about it and we learn from each other in the set of 2 different eyes and ages. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, and that last comment was by whom? The Indigenous gentleman?
Yeah, that was by Art.
By Art. So Art, I'm hoping that you won't mind if I ask you a question, may I?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. I don't see your picture. I was hoping to see your face. So Art, in some cultures, a person who admits to hearing voices, they are demonized and all of that, where I understand in other cultures, the same person might be revered. Can you, or are you willing to speak some of what it is like to be a person who has extraordinary perceptions and hears voices or any of that stuff in your culture? Are you demonized or are you revered?
I would, I'd really say that I'm neither, nor I would want to be either one, due to the fact is that I just see or perceive that I smudge off my bad vibes before I leave my house with my son. We both go different directions. We travel different paths for the day, and whoever we pass by, we come back and we talk about it. And we do talk about a lot of mental illness, addictions, and homelessness in our house
Mm,
because both of us have experienced homelessness and addiction in ourselves.
mm,
So we talk about it. I would say before I may have had some evils in my body and I lost my culture. And so I brought culture back into my household. And uh, I think during my time of being homelessness, mental illness, and an addiction, I had demons. And yes, uh, I stopped what I was raised on. So that's why I say, I don't know if I am now or not, but I know I must smudge every day. I follow my mother earth and my father sky. And this may not be for all indigenous folks. They may have their own routine, but the thing I always tell my son is like, your eyes and my eyes will see something different in this world. We will bring it back. We will talk about it and we will try to find solutions. But when we go to sleep and wake up the next day, we're going to do the same thing all over again. So, two different perspectives from about a 30 to 35-year difference between both of us, you know, and understanding, are we relieving these evils out of our body from what we've seen, or are we intentionally keeping them in mind on a constant basis to be able to talk about it at later dates with other tribal members, with other family members, or even our own support folks? But yeah, most definitely. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks so much for sharing, Art. I really appreciate it. Let's see, it looks like we lost Kozi. So let's see, we're just gonna hopefully wait for him to join back. Let's see. Well, I know this is supposed to be an open forum, so I'd like to invite some other people to share, or Dewana, if you want to jump in, you are welcome to.
I will. I will jump in. Yeah, we did lose Cozy. That's working from home. You know, that's the life of working from home. Anyway, so with art, I just heard art, and I think that's exceptional right there. That you and your son every day, not some days, but every day. You know, you go your separate ways and do what you do throughout the day, and then you come back, y'all talk about it from a different perspective. Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. But yeah, what else was I gonna say? I'm sorry, it's still early in the morning. Right.
Oh,
It's
you're
still
good. You can think about it for a second,
right.
Dewana.
Okay, I'll think about it.
Yeah, looks like Lillian has raised their hand, so.
Okay, cool.
Me again. The earlier I asked the question if you guys address the ideas of internalized racism and like how it is has been perpetuated by colonialism and the breaking apart of families. And the reason why I asked that is because I'm half Mexican, but I grew up with my white family and had no culture connection to my own, genetic history. And I always felt very awkward, but I also have to be honest with myself and realize that I have internal prejudices against members from the community which I should belong. And I don't feel good about that. And I'm working, I work to not do that, but I'm hoping I'm not the only one that fights that battle. And that's why I was bringing it up.
No, I would love to respond to that, Lillian. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm actually half Mexican, and I did the DNA test thing, and I'm mostly, Native Indigenous. But I've had to do a lot of unpacking of my own identity and the legacy of, colonialism that is in my blood, and not just because, so my mom is Mexican. She's very light skinned, which is why I have such light skin and white privilege. But my dad is actually a Border Patrol agent and comes from a long line of Border Patrol agents, unfortunately. So my mom, rejected her culture. She was born Patricia Castañeda Rojas, and now she's Patty McCraw. And the older I get and the more distance I get from the situation, I grieve for her, and I grieve for the loss of my culture, and I grieve for the violence that is in my blood, so I just wanted to share that. Let's see, and it looks like Alex has his hand raised as well.
Yeah, I just was going to speak on what Leanne was sharing. I have my own biases against my own community also, and while doing some introspection as to why, I have my reasons, and there are things that I have to deal with, yeah, it's tough to talk about it, because I know that, just like we were talking about, we, especially as a gay man, we're surrounded by machismo, right? And we're surrounded by men who, I saw it this way. This is the way I broke it down. The men were very macho, or they were molesting me. The women were catty and bitchy and said, oh, that boy is going to grow up to be nothing, right? So there were also these biases that surrounded me that were put into my head about my own community. And so it is something that I am aware of, but I'm consistently trying to rechange those patterns, because our community is just, just as good as any community. There's bad people and there's good people as well. So sorry, I got a little personal there, but I'm working on that.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Alex. I want to say that it looks like Kozi's back, although I can't find him in the videos. So I think he's.
Yeah, I am here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened. Was it on my end?
Well, I didn't kick you out, so.
Oh, okay, but I became frozen and I just heard a loud hum.
Oh, strange. Yeah, it just said you left the meeting and then stopped sharing your screen, but we kept
Really?
it going. It's been a good conversation.
I am so happy that you kept it going. As you can see, I'm not even no longer on the same computer. I had to actually just push the button and turn it off. I couldn't do anything, and it was making this really loud noise. So now I'm in the closet. I'm back in the closet again. Oh God.
Hate it when that happens.
After all I've been through here, I am now back in my closet. Anyway, needless to say, I am not going to put, well, maybe I should, because I need to honor the Mental Health Association of San Francisco, but I need to go off camera so that I can load that up in this room, okay? So please continue the conversation. It sounded like you were talking about some really good stuff, and I'm sorry I'm missing it. So I'm going on mute and off camera while I try and get the PowerPoint up on this computer.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kozi. I'm going to call on Roberto.
Here. I wish there was a quick button to unmute. So I'm gonna share a little something that happened to me one time, and I think this goes with, like, say for an example, my Latino cohorts that are that look white, or my Latino cohorts that look African American, right? So me, when the sun beats down on me, and I'm from San Joaquin County, California, and I worked in the fields, beginning of my life, so I know what that hard work is all about. My parents taught me, hey, you know what, this isn't something you're going to want to do the rest of your life, so you better stay in school, right? So this happened to me when I was back in my addiction and stuff. I was in the store, a grocery store, and a couple of Latinos were in front of me, and I look black, I look African American, okay, and they just started talking all kind of mess in Spanish about African Americans and stuff. And in my head, I'm thinking, the nerve of these stupid mother, little do they know that I'm Mexican and that I can understand every word they say. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so when they were done talking their crap, I got up in their face and I says, look, number one, you ain't even from here, so you shouldn't be acting that way, okay? Number two, you got to be culturally aware, number one. And apparently where you guys are from or how you guys were brought up, it wasn't brought to your attention. When I grew up, my grandfather told me when he found out I was running the streets and stuff, he said, look, number one, you respect everyone. If you want that respect, you get to respect yourself, right? But number two, also remember that this land was the Native Americans' land before anybody came here. So they are the ones that you need to give the utmost respect to, period, regardless, you know. It sucks that has to happen, that a lot of people aren't culturally aware, and it brings a lot of racial tendencies in their actions and their feelings and stuff. I encourage everybody to, hey, you know what, get in touch with your culture, your roots, you know, and get in touch with your cohort's culture and their roots. You know what I mean? Because I think that's the best way that we can understand each other, is by understanding each other's background, and we can live in harmony that way. You know what I mean? We can be able to live together and create a peaceful environment. But yeah, I just wanted to share that really upset me, especially when it comes to my, you know, my raza, you know, my race, and having them be naive, you know. And I'm, you know, I like how a lot of people say, well, you can't tell anybody what to do or what to say. Well, you know what, when it comes to my people, I keep it real with them, and I tell them, look, that's not the way to act. We got to start setting the example. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I just wanted to share.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Roberto. I appreciate it. Yeah, it looks like we're having a really good and important discussion around colorism. So thank you for that. It also looks like we have Kozi back.
Yes, I am back, but I'm really, it's going so well. I'd like for it to keep going in the direction that it's going. Is there anything in the chat that I'm not aware of or haven't heard?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, being a light complexion Mexican gives me privilege within my own community. Also, I'm praised over my complexion. That's what Melissa shared. William shared, everyone needs to be accepting of what they may consist of to maintain mental health, if it's right, of course, too. And then Nicole shared, thank you for that comment, Melissa. I have the same experience as well. Within my family system, I'm resented for having a white mother and acting white, and I'm aware of my privilege based on light skin. Let's see. Lillian also shared, in my college days, I took public transportation. I mostly passed for white, and that's how I thought of myself. But in the summer, I get really brown if I don't avoid the sun. I was with my ghost white boyfriend. 2 young Black girls got on the bus, and one of them asked me, "What are you?" I told them I was brown, like them, just a different shade. Let's see. And Melissa shared, but using "you're not even from here," they actually are. That doesn't excuse their behavior at all. Educating them and then speaking up and defending the Black community. Can't use racist comments to quiet racist comments. So yeah, that's what's going on right now.
Good stuff. I'm wondering who else would care to share something right now. It's going so well. Let's keep it going.
I'll share real quick because I remember in one of our real talks, I'm not sure which one it was, but I showed a picture of my mother on one of those real talks, and you know, she has natural blonde hair. You know, she can pass for white. Obviously, I don't look like that, but you know, and I brought it up, and I was talking about her struggles of her when she was growing up, and you know how, you know, she was an outcast, you know, and she didn't fit in anywhere. You know, it wasn't black or white. She was kind of stuck in the middle because of the way she looked. Because, like I said, she has natural blonde hair and really, really light skin, really, really fair. They call it a red bone in, you know, the African American community. But yeah, that's how she looked. So yeah, we did share that on one of those. I'm not sure which one it was, but I shared her picture.
Yeah,
So
that was
yeah,
our piece on biracial.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I believe there's
Mhm.
a slide. You know, we don't have a whole lot longer to go. I am going to try to present the slides again so that we can finish that and hopefully come back again together as a group. Let's see here. Share this. Oh, okay, okay. Is it coming up? Oh, okay.
Yes, it is, Kozi.
All right, cool. Thank you. Let's go from, let's see, we were right about, we were here from the current slide. Get rid of these thumbnails. Okay, thank you for, first of all, staying in the room. I'm glad that the meeting didn't end for everyone when it ended for me. And thank you for keeping it going. I really appreciate that. So we're going to try, if we can, to switch back into the subjects that we would talk about during Real Talk. And it's really important to know that without our allies, without people in high places, those of us who are struggling for our dignity and our human rights would have a much harder road to travel without allies. I realize how much allies are in the LGBT movement, since that's one of my primary targets of social justice and equality. So allyship is not self-defined, okay? Our work and our efforts must be recognized by the people we seek to ally ourselves with. A saying by Layla Said, and she's the author of a book called Me and White Supremacy. So can you think of a time when you were actually helped because of an alliance or someone who came to support you when you were fighting an uphill battle, especially around any of the subjects we've talked about? Um, if you can, if you have an example you can share, you might want to put that in the chat box. I'm going to get through the rest of these past Real Talk discussion. Here are some of the questions that we might have in any different segment asked of ourselves and of our participants and or guest speakers. Like, how has your specific life experience influenced your philosophy? You know, what is your worldview, and through what tinted shade are you looking and perceiving things? You know, how do art and mental health intersect for you? Undoubtedly, that was the week we had our artist and creativity. What are some unique challenges faced through one's mixed race experience? I think this is the one you were talking about, Duana. This was one of the questions on that week. Yes, what are some unique challenges faced through one's mixed race experience? If any of you would like to answer any of these three questions, please do so in the chat, and I'm going to keep going. And I promise we'll come back and read your responses. I believe we have more questions, such as, what does solidarity look like for you? Put it in the chat. We asked, I believe when we had our Latinx group and our guest speakers, we asked, I think I remember asking this question, did they have any advice for young people currently navigating the intersections of race and disability? So maybe it was the race and disability. So if you have an answer to that, an example of that, put it in the chat. How do you take care of yourself each day with ongoing and horrific acts of violence against marginalized communities? Okay, so once again, we're back at all of the stuff that's going on, the racial tension in this world, in this country. We're talking about the anti-Asian sentiment that is happening so strongly right now. We're talking about all of the horrific things that we bear witness to on a daily basis when we look at the news. You know, I oftentimes wonder, why do you keep looking at that? Why do you keep subjecting yourself to that? Well, because I just need to know what's going on. I need to know how the tables have turned and the trajectory that other people are making concerning my future and my life. You know, yeah, it's very difficult. Hard questions about conversations that need to be had. You know, Dewana, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I want you to take over from here since you are an employee of the Mental Health Association of San Francisco and talk about this slide here.
Oh, yes. This is a group that I host and my other co-worker, C.W. Johnson. We host this People of Color support group, as you can see, every Monday from 10:30 to 12. We talk about all kind of stuff like real talk. We talk about everything. We open it up. We let people check in, talk about their day or what have happened over the weekend or maybe what even happened that morning, and so we give it's a safe space. You can express yourself and get it out and say how you feel about whatever, but it's for people of color and not just African Americans, all
Right.
people of color. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
so it's a great group and it's like I said, it's from 10:30 to 12 and yeah, we get down in there too. Yes, we do. Yeah,
Thank you, Dewana. And
you're
once
welcome.
again, I encourage you out there, wherever you are, to ask yourself, do you have something like this in your community? Or is this something that you might be able to implement within your organization? Maybe using the Mental Health Association of San Francisco as a model or a template. Things to consider, yes? What about this one, Dewana? Go for it.
Yeah. So our next barriers to mental health care is it May 7th? Is it
That's
when?
tomorrow.
Is it wait? Ooh, Lord. So sorry. I be forgetting what day it is sometimes. Anyway, that is tomorrow, and this is what we're talking about: the barriers to the mental health community, mental health care, and the BIPOC community. And this is going to be a good one tomorrow. All of them been good, but this is going to be a good one because there are barriers for us. People of color, there are barriers, whether it be the barriers accessing healthcare, on the outside, or just accessing care from the inside. Do you understand what I'm saying? From home to getting the accurate care on the outside because they don't treat us all the same.
Absolutely.
They
Thank you
do
for
not.
that.
Yeah.
And for those of you who may be interested, you can maybe do a screenshot of this slide or capture the information there. So you can contact Peter at the Mental Health Association of San Francisco.org for more information. And maybe if you get a chance, even join in and take a listen in on tomorrow night's session from wherever you are. Let's see, real talk. Okay, what is this? All right. Um, this screen here, well, that's Peter there. I don't know if you can see my cursor. And they're a wonderful team of employees and supporters. The Mental Health Association of San Francisco is an organization dedicated to cultivating peer leadership, community building, and advancing social justice and mental health. There's even a telephone number there, which is 855-845-7415. So yeah, the mental health, there's their website, mentalhealthsf.org. In case you care to go on there, I invite you to do so and see what else they're doing. You have a number of really great programming.
Yes, we do. And we have a whole lineup of support groups Monday through Friday.
Right,
And that number is to that warm line I was telling y'all about. So
right. Like talk about some of these. You want to read
yep.
this?
Yeah, here we go. So we have this group right here, autism adults on the autism spectrum. I think that's on Thursday at 2 o'clock. We have the collecting behaviors hoarding disorder groups that is on Mondays and Wednesdays. Now every week they change up. So like This week was on Wednesday. Next week it'll be on Monday. Managing Anxiety. This is one of my co-workers. She runs this group. She also does the adults and autism spectrum. But that Managing Anxiety group is on Tuesdays at 2 or 2:30. Absolutely wonderful. Depression Lives on, and so can we. Another one of my co-workers. He runs that group. They got the Hearing Voices support group. Never been to that one. And on Fridays we do coffee talk, social hour, where we, it's kind of laid back. We don't talk about nothing heavy in there. I personally did a presentation on the plants. It looked like a jungle in my house. I got a lot of plants in here. I did a presentation on all these plants and what some of them are, and what some of them mean to me. And so yeah. And then of course my group, Monday mornings, people of color.
Great.
Come hang out with us. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dewana. So as you can see, the Mental Health Association of San Francisco hosts a variety of support groups for diverse communities and individuals experiencing mental health challenges. And I really am thankful to them for allowing me to, first of all, represent them here today. I hope I've done them well as far as representing them as someone who does not actually work there, but who has been adopted into their family. I really appreciate you. And I want to say to all of you, thank you for coming to Real Talk. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can have more conversation amongst one another in the last few minutes of the group. Would anyone care to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and say anything in closing? We'd love to hear from you.
Kozi, I just want to thank you for representing, where I work at, my employer, our whole organization. Yes, you have done us some justice. Thank you very much for
Thank you,
representing us.
Dewana.
Yes,
Thank you for
indeed.
being here to support me this morning.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to share some things that were in the chat in response to
Okay.
some of those questions. David shared that art has allowed for me to process mental health, trauma, etc., in ways I would not otherwise know how to express. It comes out and lands on the canvas, leaving me feeling free of something that was not serving me. Prior to recovery, I would not have given myself the love to be called an artist. Today I am. Thank you for sharing that. And let's see, David shared, me and my girlfriend are mixed race Hawaiians from Hawaii. Both are artists and we use our art to represent our culture. And for myself, I use it as a release of my frustrations and struggles. I believe music and art are so key to helping people with mental illness. Let's see. Yeah, those are the ones that I'll share. Robert had a question, so I'll read that. Do you have any thoughts about the differences between cultural competence and cultural awareness, especially when it includes diversity and equity elements? Peers would never accept someone as a clinical employee passing themselves off as culturally competent if they had no lived experience. Yet they seem to be trying to train peers to be culturally aware so as to relate to other marginalized populations. Isn't it actually that the system should have diversity of employees as a source of support rather than those simply informed about certain basic things that allow meaningful communication and respect?
Nice. I believe that was from Robert. That's a mouthful. And cultural competence versus cultural awareness. I'm interested to hear what one more person may have an answer to that particular question. Anybody?
I'm not sure if he's answering that question, but Willie does have his hand up.
Okay, please. I can't see that. Go for it.
Well, my communication is general. It's not about the question, but I'd like to say, Katie and Kozi, I
Yes.
followed you since yesterday. You guys are impeccable. And I just want to thank you for that. I'll cherish this knowledge. Now, I want to ask Dewana about her consortiums that she listed. I can identify with all those, but the one that stands out most to me, I'd like to know more about Hearing Voices. So I'm going to leave an email to would you please share with me any websites or anything else you know about hearing voices? Because a lot of my clients face those issues, and each day it's becoming a challenge and harder for me to deal with clients.
Okay, Willie, I can actually do that. I am actually a Hearing Voices Network group facilitator. And just yesterday, I was asked to be on the board of the Hearing Voices Bay Area Voices Hearing Voices Network. So I
Great.
can share that stuff with you if you, I'm sure that they will be able to put me in touch with you through the Peer Apocalypse. So I'll be getting back to you.
Also kindly, thank you.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you everyone for being here. For those of you who are still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm so apologetic for the technical difficulty, but I'm hoping that something that was said here today has raised awareness or has maybe made someone look at a situation from a different viewpoint, any and all of that. You know, let us know how we did in the evaluation. That'll be our or my gauge of how this workshop actually worked or was effective or not. Peace and blessings, everybody.
Peace and blessings.
Stay safe.
Peace and blessings. Have a good day, everybody.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye,
All right.
Kozi. See you tomorrow.
Yeah. No, tonight, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, tonight. See?
Yeah, we have to plan for it, don't we?
Yeah, we do, but we talked about it yesterday a little bit. You wasn't
Oh,
there. Maybe
I
we'll
forget.
talk about it again.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Peace. Peace, man.